Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video we're going to do some more writing feedback. Again, we have an IELTS writing academic essay, task 2, and we start as always by reading the question, making sure that we understand what we need to do and thinking a little bit about structure. So, structure. Some children, not all children, some children spend hours every day on their smartphones. Why is this the case? Question 1. And do you think this is a positive or a negative development? Question 2. Okay, very easy, I think, with structure. Those of you who know me well know that in the introduction, I like to have 3 things. A little, just one sentence, background information, children, how they spend their time, or the rise of smartphones, something like that. Or something about smartphones. Then some reference to the question, like you need to mention that, there are children who spend a lot of time on their smartphones. And then some simple thesis statement just to say this essay will look at the reasons why this happens, and I will argue that this is overall a positive or negative development. Of course, you can do some paraphrasing there, but I want to see that in the essay you're going to discuss the reasons, and also it's very important in the introduction that you state whether you believe that it is a positive or a negative development. This is an essay where you have to choose a side, even though it's a two-part, two-question essay. Still, one of the questions requires you to take a side, and so in the introduction, I don't want to know the reasons why you believe it's positive or negative in the introduction, but I do want to know what your position is in the introduction. I need to know that. Then, very, very simple, body paragraph 1, reasons why. I think 2 reasons, absolutely fine. And then body paragraph 2, say whether it's a positive or negative development. Again, 2 reasons why it's positive or 2 reasons why it's negative, absolutely fine. Then in the conclusion, a quick summary of those points, and I think some reflective comment might be useful, some advice to people in general, some advice to the government, or some reminder, speaking directly to the reader, not using you, but saying, if you think it's a positive development, a good reflective comment might be, therefore we should not be so worried when we read articles online talking about this. Or if you think it's a negative development, maybe you say, and therefore governments need to recognize this as a problem and take measures to prevent it from becoming an even more serious problem in the future. Some type of reflective comment like that at the end might be nice. I like reflective comments, but let's see what we get from the candidate. So we're hoping for 4 paragraphs here. Just want to check that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Balance looks nice. I like the fact that the conclusion is short. Sorry, the conclusion is short, the introduction is short, the body paragraphs are longer, all of that's good stuff. It does look slightly long. It's longer than 300 words for sure. Let's have a look. 322 words. Okay, I'm not going to cry about 322 words. I do think you should set yourself a ceiling of 300, 310, but I'm not going to cry about 320. Yeah. So let's see what we get here. In an era characterized by, cool, nice little embedded or reduced relative clause. Nice, good stuff. In an era characterized by rapid technological advancements and sedentary lifestyles, just feels a little bit too much. Don't worry about trying to make your language so impressive. You don't need it. It has become increasingly common for children to spend a lot of time glued to their mobile phones daily. Again, we don't need this word daily. It just feels a bit out of place, particularly in urban areas. So this is just a long sentence, isn't it? So we have, two sentences in this paragraph. Again, I like, 3 clear points: background, reference to the question, thesis statement. But okay, it does a good job of introducing the theme. There's a lot of good language, like to be glued to, characterized by, that's all good. It does feel a little bit a little bit like the candidate is overwriting. In an era characterized by rapid technological advancements and sedentary lifestyles. Is this era characterized by sedentary lifestyles? I don't think so. I think sedentary lifestyles, they are a problem for many people. I don't know if we can say that this era is characterized by sedentary lifestyles. So I think, candidate, you should think carefully about, candidate might be thinking like, oh, I like this term like characterized by, and I like this term rapid technological advancements, and I like this term sedentary lifestyles. Okay, all of that is good demonstration of your lexical resource, your range of vocabulary, but does it really work? And I just don't think that this era is characterized by sedentary lifestyles. I think that's quite an exaggerated view. So do be careful that, that when you're trying to activate your great vocabulary, do be careful that that great vocabulary is not like getting in the way of a coherent and truthful message. Okay, nice present perfect here. Nice increasingly common. Lots of good language. Lots of good language. Daily for me just seems irrelevant. Okay, while there are clear reasons for this situation, but that's not a contrast. Okay, it does more harm than, it's like saying there are clear reasons for this situation, but I believe that it does more harm than good. This is, so again, while is great for some essay questions, but this is a two-part question. So, in this essay, I will explore the different reasons for this trend, and I will explain why I believe it does more harm than good. Yeah, so I don't see any reason for the contrast here. So what is the contrast? Like, although there are clear reasons, it does more harm than good. Although there are some advantages, I believe that it does more harm than good. That's fine for like advantages, disadvantages, or advantages outweighing the disadvantages. But this isn't logical here. So that affects your coherence and cohesion. Okay. Oh, I don't like direct questions. I don't feel it's academic. I just really don't feel that that's academic to ask a direct question. If you're writing articles or something, we do that, right? Magazine articles, you want to get the attention of the reader. Like, are you bored? Are you tired? Are you fed up with your life? Well, why not try? In advertising, we speak directly to the reader or the listener. We tend not to do that in academic essays. So a little bit of a lack of awareness of style here. Why has the prevalence of smartphones among children soared? With the swift evolution of technology, along with the advent of high-speed internet, convenient and easily accessible online learning platforms and websites have proliferated worldwide, which has led to the rise of distance learning. This is a long topic sentence. I want topic sentences to be short, clear, easy to understand, and that will set up the rest of the paragraph. This for me is a little bit long. Just start the paragraph with the main reason why children use smartphones so much nowadays is that there's a variety of websites and platforms that are entertaining for children. Something simple. Given these circumstances, it is not surprising to see children, I like this setup, it is not surprising to see children using educational resources like online courses. Children? Do children, is that what really children all over the world are using their smartphones for? Because I've worked with children in the past. Children use TikTok and children play games. Children generally all over the world do not use their smartphones to access online courses. They just don't. Teenagers might. Some teenagers might. Mostly children don't. Mostly they don't. Electronic books and learning applications like Google Classroom and Duolingo to study. Again, look how long this sentence is. This is one sentence. Given these circumstances, it is not surprising to see children use... Okay, let's count the clauses. Given these circumstances... Okay, that's not a clause, it's a fine. It is not surprising to see children using educational resources like online courses, electronic books, and learning applications. Okay, maybe not so many clauses, but this is so much information here, thereby spending a considerable amount of time on electronic gadgets like smartphones and laptops. Why are we introducing laptops? Why do we need laptops in this essay? Is that really relevant to the topic? Smartphones? Maybe it's slightly extended. Yeah, so again, I just don't, the main idea, I don't really think you've got to the heart of the main reason why children spend hours on their smartphones, which, pretty obviously is watching videos and playing games. No? So I think, I can't punish you for being for having the wrong opinion, but I don't know. I don't find it very persuasive because it just seems like not really. Yeah, I just don't buy it as a realistic point. Anyway, a good case in point is my country, Uzbekistan, where children increasingly opt to engage in online English lessons and IELTS courses. Children? And again, I guess it depends on your definition of children. I wouldn't say that 16 and 17-year-olds are really children. I think they are young people, young adults, maybe. Yeah, and I don't know if really. I mean, is it true that people in Uzbekistan use their smartphones to have IELTS lessons and do IELTS courses? Maybe they do. Laptops for sure, and teenagers for sure, but I don't know. If again, I'll repeat the point. If somebody said to me, like, oh, if an alien race came down to planet Earth and said, okay, Glyn, I've noticed that a lot of people on your planet, a lot of children on your planet are using smartphones. Why is this happening? And if I say, oh, it's because they're all learning English and using Duolingo on their phones, I don't think that's true. It would be nice, wouldn't it? To boost both their English skills and IELTS scores efficiently, contributing significantly to the rise of screen time. Okay, so the candidate's language is incredible. I will say the candidate's language is incredible, but the candidate is so focused on using language that he's not really making, I think, strong points. Okay, and also, why is this the case? I would like to see I would rather see two reasons here, but okay, one extended reason, fine. Okay, one of the most major drawbacks. Most major sounds a bit strange. Major is already a strong adjective. It's an ungradable adjective, so we tend not to use it. It's already superlative. We don't usually use it with most. One major drawback of this widespread use. One major drawback is fine. One major drawback of this widespread use of smartphones is the negative impact on children's physical health. Okay, so you're going to argue now that children using smartphones to learn English is going to have a negative impact on their physical health? Let's see where you go with this. When children spend excessive hours on their mobile devices, they run a high risk of developing a sedentary lifestyle. Maybe, which significantly reduces their engagement in physical activities like walking, hiking, and cycling. Okay. As a result, nice development, they become more susceptible to various health issues like obesity, poor posture, and weakened muscles. It feels like a little bit excessive to say if kids learn English on their smartphones, they're probably or they do, they become not, they are they're at an increased risk of, but no, they become, if children study English on their smartphones, they become more susceptible to, we do get a bit of distancing, to obesity, poor posture, and weakened muscles. I don't believe that. Ultimately compromising their overall physical health and well-being. Again, is that true? I mean, honestly, candidate, let's imagine a 15-year-old and you ask them, okay, what do you use your smartphone for? And they say, I use my smartphone to learn English. would you then say like, oh my God, you're gonna damage your health? Um, if kids are sitting around, if they're lying down watching TikTok videos and stuff, maybe you could say that. Um, yeah, I don't know. This is especially detrimental for children in urban areas who already face restricted access to open outdoor spaces and limited opportunities for active play. Maybe. In conclusion, while the increasing prevalence of smartphones among children has stemmed primarily from the rise of digital learning, again, it's overwritten, it's too complicated, it makes it difficult to read. I maintain that the health, again, it's not a while. This isn't, it's not the correct use of contrast. I maintain that the health risks associated with prolonged screen time are far more significant than any educational benefits. Okay, that's a clear idea. There's a clear summary of the main ideas. Reflective comment might be nice, but okay. So let's get into this. I'm going to say task response 6. And the reason why is I just don't think you have a well-developed and well-explained argument. While you are on topic, I just don't think you're getting to the heart of the issue. Yeah, it's like if somebody asks the question like, "Oh, what do you think is the number one cause of obesity?" The obvious go-to answers here are the food that we eat and the exercise that we do. And it's like if somebody said something like, I don't know, bad swimming teachers. It's like, well, what do you mean this? It's like, oh, well, because swimming teachers are bad, people don't want to swim. And because people don't swim, they get fat. And it's like, well, that could potentially be true, but that's seems to be a weird area to focus on. And for me, the argument that kids are glued to their smartphone nowadays is because all kids are learning IELTS. I I just don't think that's true. I really don't think kids all over the world are using their smartphones to learn English. Many teenagers certainly might do it, but we know it's social media, it's TikTok, it's YouTube, it's games that they play, those distracting things. The problem, I think pretty obviously, the problem is not that children are spending too much time using their phones for education. I just don't. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so for me, task response 6. Yeah, I also think it is clear that the candidate's over focus on language does get in the way of him making clear, easy to understand points. Um, but coherence and cohesion, I will say the development, the logical organization, despite a couple of, I'm going to give 7, but it is close to an 8. So I don't like this while, it's a weird contraster. I don't like this while, it's a weird contraster. I don't think it works. I think it's kind of weird to set up the information like this. But um, and maybe the topic sentences being so long also kind of affects the coherence and cohesion just a little bit. But things like given these circumstances, it kind of does have a really wide variety of connectives and discourse markers and cohesive devices, relative clauses, things like this. So it kind of could get an 8 for this. Lexical resource, I'm also going to go with 7. And the reason for this is I think you are overwriting. I think your range is amazing. You really do have an amazing range. But for me, your use of vocab leaves a slightly negative impression on the reader because it's just very clear that you're always trying to activate as much kind of complex vocab as you want, and you're not using, basic vocab and basic structures should form at least half, I guess, of your of your writing. And for me, you're overwriting. You're always looking for opportunities to use the most complex vocab, and then that sometimes makes the language sound a bit weird. Grammatical range and accuracy, I will give a higher score for this. I'm going to give a band 8 for this. Yeah, very few mistakes. One of the most major instead of one major drawback is probably better. Wonderful range. Again, I think maybe the only thing I don't like is maybe the overcomplication of sentences. I think some sentences are just too complex. It was an example of this. Yeah, that's one sentence. Some of the you have quite a few sentences like this that are just crazy long and crazy complex, but your grammar is super accurate. You have an amazing range, but for me, not enough for the 9, just because some of those sentences are just crazy complex. But okay, 6, 7, 7, 8. Overall, this gives you a score of 7.0. That puts you in at C1, and I think that's fair. I think it is clear that you are a C1 user of English, but it's also clear that you have strange ideas about, what an academic essay is, and you choose strange things to write about. Yeah, so like many candidates who are at the C1 level, it appears that you think that writing an IELTS essay is all about impressing an examiner with as many different bits of language as you can use, and it's really not about that. It's about making clear, obvious points and supporting them with clear, obvious evidence, examples, explanations. And for this, your task response suffers because you are so language focused, in my opinion. I don't know. What do you think? Maybe I'm a little bit harsh. Maybe, an examiner might give it a higher mark. Examiner might give it 7.5 or an 8. For me, it's definitely not a 9. I think 7 is a fair result for this. But I don't know. Let me know what you think. Again, if you're the candidate watching this, I hope, you don't feel offended by any of the feedback that I give. Probably watching it, you might feel like you want to say, like, oh yeah, but the reason I did that was da 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 da. And of course, people can disagree. People can disagree with me. I'm sure if there were 10 examiners looking at the same piece of writing, we would have disagreements. Some people would say, no, that complex, that sentence, sure, it is overly complex, but it's absolutely fine. Another examiner might say, well, no, that sentence is far too complex. We don't want that. Some people might say that, yeah, it is fair that, no, I don't know. I don't know if any examiner would agree that the go-to point is that the problem with children using smartphones is that they are using it for education, or the reason why children are using smartphones is because children all over the world are trying to get educated in, learning English and using Duolingo and Google Classroom. Yeah. But yeah, the point is that 10 different examiners might have different views. I'm only one examiner. I'm giving my point of view, and for me, it's a score of 7.0. Certainly, some candidates' grammar and vocab, both of those points are amazing. Improving task response should be the easiest thing, but yeah, it's not always. It's often the weakest criterion. It's often the weakest criterion for people, at least on this channel. Anyway, if you think I'm being too harsh, if I'm being too generous, let me know in the comments section. If you'd like me to check your IELTS writing, or if you'd like a free practice speaking test with feedback, then information on how you can take part is given on my Telegram channel, Expert Examiner. More videos coming soon, but for now, bye-bye.